Hello and welcome to the Interstitials Podcast. I'm your host, Lenny Teller, along with our other co-host, Ernest Snooks. How you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm pretty good, boy. It's a nice blizzardy day out here in Stephenville.
Yep. Between the blizzard and the COVID, I'm not sure what's worse right now.
Yeah, they're both pretty bad, but that's just part and parcel with it, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But what we can kind of find interesting. Boy's there's a new job opening up for the Premier's office.
Yes, boy. Where's that at now?
Oh, right out in Central, not too far from St. John's. Turns out that the Premier decided that we needed a new regional office for him out in Central, which I mean, there is one out in Corner Brook at the Church of Squires building, a name that I really, really don't think should ever be associated with high office, because based on the fact that Richard Squires was one behind the whole riot over at the Colonial Building back in the 30s, after they thought he embezzled $20,000, so he named a building after that guy.
Can you imagine a time in Newfoundland when $20,000 was a big deal?
Yeah, it's kind of weird now when we think about that, because we're spending 136
billions and billions and billions in a financial crisis in this province, and they
don't forget the
$20,000.
Imagine if he had said we're going to spend $136,000 on chairs for the Colonial Building.
Wow.
he wouldn't have gotten away that day.
I hope those chairs can massage my back while I'm sitting on them.
Well, they're massaging somebody's wallet, guaranteed.
Good.
But no, Rodney Mercer seems to be the fellow who is going to be the fellow who's got this new job out in Central.
Yes, and supposedly what I read today is there's going to be two of them.
Ooh,
there's two EAs in this office, and I'm not sure if Rodney is. So there's two employees regardless. Rodney is one of them, and he may also be. Was he Scott Sims' CA?
He sounds familiar, to tell you the truth. I'm pretty sure he might have been.
He was involved with the Dwight Ball government when I researched him earlier, and he stepped down for some reason.
I know that he was a candidate before and he lost. I know that much.
Election.
I also heard another name too. I think it was Steve Tomlin.
Okay.
Now that's another name. I don't know if Steve is incoming or outgoing.
Okay.
But I think that might be the other person, because I've heard that name floated around too. And he was a political science prof at MUN.
Right.
Which it's kind of strange that he would want to be a PA after a career in academia, a distinguished one at
well, too. For six figures, I mean, the career in academia, most of that is based off your own research, based off of you trying to create your own funding and your own grant to save your ass while you're there. These jobs are six-figure salaries. They're huge paying jobs. And I mean, we know a couple of CAs who barely make, well, I don't think it's quite 50 as a CA.
No, it's just about.
You change one letter and all of a sudden it becomes a six-figure job.
Yep. But the thing is that, it's the Premier's office, so they can justify it. But the funny thing is about this, and this is something that I raised on Twitter earlier today, is why is it in Central, where it's not that far from St. John? It's give or take 5 to 6 hours.
It's not a lot better than his own district.
That's also very true. But here's the thing, though, Lenny.
It's literally next door, actually.
I know. But here's the thing though. Why wasn't it in Labrador? Where you would figure that it'd be the place, to put these kind of like premier's liaison offices. Why would it be? Because funny thing is, actually, I did some asking around, and Dwight Ball actually had an office out there back in his time, and that was in addition to the Labrador Affairs office. It was out in I think one was in Lab West, and there was a lot of controversy about that when they shut down that office. But I mean, if Fury was wanted to and really kind of like be a bit more, have a bit more of a presence in Labrador, which I mean traditionally has been neglected by the island politicos, like the island ruling class, I should say, haven't really paid much attention to Labrador except when we need some iron, or we want some energy. Although that's kind of hit and miss depending on the weather, it seems, with Muskrat Falls. So it would have been good to kind of have that there and kind of tell people like, hey, St. John's hasn't forgotten about you. We care, we're here, we want to hear your issues. And I mean, it will be a lot easier because otherwise, these people have to, if they really want to see the premier, they got to go all the way to St. John's to find his nearest representative.
Or the vaccine.
And that's, yes, that's quite true. That's another,
it's another story in itself. I mean, God loves the man for doing it. He's trained to do it. God love him for doing it. But can you imagine showing up to get a booster or first or second dose in Labrador and walking in and here's the Premier and the Minister of Indigenous Affairs and Lisa Dempster?
Yeah, not me. No, I'd be kind of a little bit confused because, like, in all honesty, like as much as I appreciate him doing this, there's not really a need. I'd rather my Premier be doing his job, not his old job. And you don't need to be a doctor to give a vaccination. It's not rocket science. It's needle go in arm and you push down on the plunger and bango, you're good. If the Premier really cared about COVID responses, then he would have trained a few more people, have a course, because it's not a hard thing to do. It's really not. We just need people to give a needle. That's it.
Yeah, and I guess the issue is it was a bit of look at me and what have I done, because I'm sorry, Lisa I don't think she is the Minister of Indigenous Affairs, is she? She has something else.
Maybe it's
she
Labrador
is from
Affairs.
Labrador, correct?
Yes, I think she's Labrador Affairs though at the least.
She is one of three. It's Jordan,
Yes.
Layla, and herself, correct?
Yes, it is. So all three parties are represented.
Because Andrew is not just the Premier, he's also the Minister of something for Labrador as well.
No, I think he's Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs.
Let me see. It's often a Premier gets.
Dempster is Minister responsible for Indigenous Affairs and Reconciliation.
And let's see, Premier Fury. So it makes sense for her to be there.
Yep.
But most of her doings that I've heard of Lisa Dempster actually comes from reservist work in the social work program and mainly child, youth, family services.
Yeah. Okay,
I guess you could kind of make a case why that falls under that.
Yeah.
But
Lisa Dempster is Minister responsible for Labrador Affairs as well, actually.
Okay.
And Andrew Fury is, he is the President of the Executive Council, Premier of the province, and Minister for Intergovernmental Affairs. And apparently vaccinations.
Boy, oh boy. I mean, kudos to them for doing it. Labrador has definitely, as of late, been hit much harder than anywhere else on the island per capita. And I mean, we discussed that on the last episode, is Nobody talks about the per capita number,
Mhm.
but we are certainly growing in a week. We are over 4,000 active cases for a population of 500,000 with a very high vaccination rate, fully vaccinated vaccination rate, that is, and we still have a high number. Now, they did have a professor on from one yesterday. What is his name? The doctor that does a lot of
Um,
for us.
I should know his name. Honestly, I've been kind of tuned out from the COVID things. I mean, just to keep my own sanity up.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's been hard, man. It's wearing me down. I got to admit.
Hard on everybody, buddy. You shouldn't be embarrassed by that. It's certainly taken a toll on everyone. My career path has certainly changed. I have the same job, but trying to do K-6 online learning from home is not for the faint of heart. We do it because we want to keep those kids safe. We want to keep ourselves safe, and that's the directive we have. But it does create its own challenges, mentally, physically, and emotionally. It creates challenges. But his bearer of good news yesterday is, given the vaccination numbers and um, the current place of where we sit with active cases, we are probably at the peak of where we're going to be. And today we did see a large reduction of numbers. Now, I haven't compared that to testing results, if we're still testing as much as we were in the past week or not. But I know the positive number of cases have gone down. I think they said 9 point something percent today. So we're at less than 10% of those tested are now testing positive.
Which is great, to be honest with you.
Yes.
I'm so happy that this is the case. And I hope that it just keeps getting better, man.
Me too.
I just want it to end so bad. You have
But if
no
you
idea.
look around town, I remember, and I mean, we'll get back to the topic at hand now in a minute about this central office. But you remember locally, when COVID first came out in March, town didn't move.
No, it didn't. That's right.
Instead, money came in. Still wasn't a lot of movement, but when people did move, they spent a lot of money.
Yeah.
Then things started to get a little better. And then last June, just before school closed, we had a Bay St. George outbreak again. And that was kind of really the first major one we had, I think, was last June. We almost weathered the storm for an entire year before we had a huge outbreak in Bay St. George. And there was some fear, but this time around, it doesn't seem to be as bad. So I don't know if people are just tired of restrictions, if they feel more safe being vaccinated, or what it is. But the town, for the most part, even given restrictions, is still relatively busy. Have you found that in the retail sector?
To an extent, yes. Although, like, it's kind of the slow season for my kind of part of the retail sector. Sector. But I mean, things seem to be pretty normal around town. I mean, when I go about my business, the mall is pretty rocking. The Walmart. I actually heard from friends who work down, say for example, like Walmart or the other shops here in town, that they're busy. It's like nothing's ever changed. It's like almost like before COVID. So people. Well, yeah, I know, and that's probably why we're getting those case numbers. But I mean, people are just like they're just done with it. Really, tell you the truth, for the most part. And so we'll see how it kind of goes, I guess. But I was just ready to move on.
That's the general feeling, I think, everywhere. You still do have some people that are very nervous, but it seems like the general consensus is it is what it is. I'm going to get it at this point, or I'm never going to get it. And I mean, when Dr. Fitzgerald, sorry, came on last week and said we just have to assume at this point that at some point you're all going to have it. I think that was her saying, like, listen, this is what it is at this point, and there's no avoiding it. So
no, yeah, that's true.
But back to the central office, like in the research that I did since the PCs released the story yesterday, I haven't even been able to find out what this person is supposed to do, or these people.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's the thing about it. Like, are they really supposed to do anything? I
Right.
mean, this is kind of a jobs for the boys kind of scenario. Tell you the truth.
So you have somebody who ran in the last election. I mean, elections are tough. You and I both know that. Sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose. So no fault to um Mr. Mercer
No,
that he lost. But this is kind of like here's a beer for the boys in the back. Thanks for running, and now here's the same salary plus more as you would have had as a backbencher.
Yep. Yep.
In a time when our province has done consultation after consultation after consultation since Premier Furry has taken office, and we're said we got no money for nothing. We got none of this. We got none of that. We can't spend. We can't do this. We can't do that. You can't get the support you need here or there or anywhere else. Oh, my buddy needs a job. Here's $100,000. So it kind of makes you wonder that $100,000 could go a long way in some social sector right now.
No, absolutely. And like I said, I mean, like we're also kind of ignoring the fact here that Labrador, if you had to put a regional office up, Labrador was the perfect place for it.
Yes, and I think if you put it in Labrador, nobody says a word.
Nope. I think it would have been fine. I think it.
Literally, I don't mean to cut you off, but between Deer Lake to Gander, you have the Premier and the Minister of Health.
Yep.
And now you're going to have a regional office in the middle of both of them.
Yep.
While Labrador is up there with no supports, no resources, and a huge COVID outbreak, and no way to deal with it. What we're worried about is the Premier's office in Central paying 2 staff members.
Yeah, pretty much. Like that's just how they're doing it, man.
Yeah.
Like it sucks, but that's just their thought process. They think it's a good idea, and they don't really mind. Otherwise, to tell you the truth.
No.
And it's, for me, it's a really big problem here, because we don't, like, we're leaving these kind of people out in the cold, and for what? Because buddy over in Central, he deserves to get a job on the, I guess, on the taxpayer's dime.
Mm-hmm.
For either because Scott Sims is out, or because he worked hard in the last election, whatever the case may be. But here's the other thing for Central. Like, if I was an MHA for Central, and I, liberal or otherwise, I mean, that raises the question: why the hell do they need me? Because your MHA is supposed to be the one you go to talk about your issues, and they bring it forward to the government or to the premier or whatever is necessary. So this is kind of like a loop around. So why am I going to go see John Hagee or I don't know, Pam Parsons or anyone like that, when I can just drive down the road and go to the premier's regional office in Central?
Right. So I believe, and I don't think they've been clear. They've just said Central at this point, correct?
Yes.
It's quite possible they put this in Chris Tibbs's district.
That would that would actually, now you say it like that, it does make a bit of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a district flipping exercise in district flipping.
Yes.
And this is the problem when you have a majority government, even if it's on shaky ground like this one is. They can kind of do what they want.
Yeah.
And all we can kind of do is just be like, well, whoops.
Yeah.
That's
really need to wonder where their head is at this point in time.
Oh, I know where their head is at. It's up something, but I'm not going to say it on the air. We'll put two and two together on that one, boys and girls.
$100,000. I mean, all they said was six figures, so it could potentially be more. That is the minimum that it is, with the potential to be a lot more, which I firmly believe that it will be.
Of
Part
course
of
it will.
this gets overturned, but we both know that that's not going to happen. But
Well, no, it's not going to be, because there's no real need in the premier's eyes, at the very least, for that. So he's not going to go ahead and change that because a couple of MHAs on the opposition side got a little bit upset about it. You know, it's not his problem. He doesn't care. And so we need to, I guess, the best thing to do is put real pressure on him, because I mean, just the opposition saying it is not good enough. People really need to write letters. They need to be on VLCM talking about it. They need to be on Facebook talking about it. Every kind of social media. They need to be like, listen, if you're going to build an office, put it out in Labrador. Put it where they really need it. And that's the place where I would have it, because Labrador is not connected to the mainland. It's not easy to get to, even at the best of times. Even if you can fly over there, which it is expensive to fly to Labrador, and it's and we see that through people who have to fly. And this is what really bothers me too. They could fly to Deer Lake, and get treated at the new hospital that's being built in Corner Brook, or is built. Why is it that all these kind of cases that happen in Labrador, they always have to go to St. John's? I know the Health Sciences Center is there, but there's got to be stuff that we can do over here that can save on money. Because I mean, we're spending a lot of money in flights, and these people are too. And we're spending it's almost like it's a way to kind of prop St. John's up a little bit more.
yes,
And I don't agree with that. And maybe that's just kind of the regionalism talking, but I don't know.
When it comes to Labrador, when it comes to especially Labrador, we need to take a different approach than we have been taking, and the same, but not so much with rural Newfoundland. And the idea has been thrown out there of a Labrador rural strategy of kind of grouping Labrador and rural Newfoundland into one and finding the similarities. But I would take it a step further, as Labrador is a unique thing in itself.
It is, yep.
It needs to be treated independent of rural Newfoundland. So I would go a step further and say we need a plan for Labrador, all parts of Labrador. And then we need a plan for rural Newfoundland, because some of the issues are the same, but they are amplified when you're that far away. I mean, we're talking about the mainland portion of an island. So we're already disconnected in terms of land, which makes it that much harder. And it's quite easy to see, even in Newfoundland, you have St. John's where the hub is, and you're disconnected from everything else in Newfoundland. And Labrador itself needs its own strategy. It needs its own premier's office. And between the main part of Labrador and the reserves, they all need to come up with a strategy and execute it that's going to work with everybody, so they can feel like you're part of us.
No, absolutely.
I'll see a day when they say, "Oh, Quebec looks pretty good."
Something in me says that's probably not going to happen. Nobody wants to be with Quebec. Well, you know what? Granted, you know what? You do make a fair point there, Lenny. Jokes aside, and for me though, one thing I always thought about is, why not try to develop Labrador further? Why not try to encourage population growth there, and make it so that we can better justify the infrastructure work. Justify improving the Trans Labrador Highway, because that thing is, apparently, I've never been to Labrador in my life. I hope to go someday, but the road apparently is pretty bad, and there's no gas stations between like one point and the other. So it's it seems like it's a very risky kind of venture if you're not prepared for it. And so like I'm just kind of wondering, like, good God, why aren't we trying to develop this? Why aren't we like trying to make this place like really attractive to come and set up? But it just seems like we're really not. Like, it's almost like we're not interested.
Right. And it's been that way across the board for years. And,
Yeah, and that's problematic.
And Fury was the premier of change, remember? It was going to be politics done different.
Yeah, I've heard that one enough times.
As we said back in June, change, but not so much. And that's exactly what we have here.
Yep. Well, we called it, man. Well, like, one thing we are, we know how to predict it.
That's right. And I guess that leads us to our next point of a bit of controversy today, was bringing up should Newfoundland and Labrador have balanced budget legislation? And I've heard arguments on both sides about how it was correct in saying the time is now, and how the other flip side of it says, well, it's important, but not right now. And the main issue was COVID. Although balanced budget legislation does allow for extenuating circumstances. And the other part was, well, if we adopt that now, we can no longer make payroll, which is also a scary concept to think about. But if the time is not right now for balanced budget legislation, when is the right time? And what do we do in the interim to get out of the mess that we're in?
No, it's true. Like, that's something that we definitely need to talk about. I mean, like, it's something that we've advocated that, man. We've always talked about balanced budgets.
That's right.
Because I mean, like because me and you have realized that you can't just keep this very, very unhealthy system going. Now, do I think that we can just put in like kind of this kind of legislation and automatically enforce it? Like, I say, like, from like this day forth, all balance, everything must be balanced. Maybe not straight away. Like, it has to be like I give it within like a 2 to 3 year framework. Like, just to kind of get people used to it, because the shock to the system is going to be great. It's going to be such that, like, the cuts that may have to be done would make probably like Clyde Wells look like Mr. Rogers.
Right.
So and as sad as it is, I believe that they're necessary, you know, and we take the cuts, and then we kind of say, like, okay, here's issue A, B, and C. What can we do to streamline this, to bring it into the modern era, to make it more efficient? Because one thing I find about Newfoundland in terms of its departments, they're backwards sometimes. They're very, very backwards. Education is a bit is almost outdated in terms of how they have the lessons and how everything is structured. The same thing with the Department of Transportation. That's not only quite underfunded, and I mean, like, with the province the size of ours, it's hard to keep that department fully funded as it is. But I mean, like, there's efficiencies that can be found, and there's new technology that can be put into place that we can use to kind of bring costs down as they go, and same with every other department.
Right.
And of course, some of that will include the very unpopular idea of privatization. You know, some things are just probably going to be privatized. Like, for example, motor vehicle.
Yes.
Like, it works well in Alberta. I remember it. I had very little headaches with motor vehicle registration in Alberta.
That's right.
But here, it seems to be a nightmare. Now, I haven't dealt with them for about, well, crap, I haven't dealt with them since I came back to Newfoundland.
No.
But it's not an experience that I'd like to have to have. But there's a lot of people who do not have a pleasant experience with motor vehicles, be it Newfoundland, New Brunswick, especially in the United States. You always hear those really crappy jokes about it. So I think like we need to kind of privatize or look at privatizing it. Same with Marble Mountain. I really see absolutely no need for Marble Mountain. I'm sorry if anyone is offended by that, but there is absolutely no need for Marble Mountain to be taxpayer funded. It is a gigantic money pit.
Mhm.
Well, money mountain, I should say. You throw the cash at it and it gets stuck in the trees and stays there. And the amount of money they put in there, man, like the bird nest must be made at like hundreds. The squirrels are collecting, they're not collecting nuts, they're collecting like toonies and loonies, putting them in their kind of burrows or whatever it is they have.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean all the crows got like gold plated like claws and everything. It's just,
and that's the thing. Like we both spent time in Alberta, and but it seems like one of these days someone's going to tell us just to go back at this point. But there are a lot of similarities to be drawn from Alberta itself and Newfoundland, and we were both natural resource rich.
Yep.
And both stewards of food, I guess you could say, except our farm was on the water and Alberta's farms and ranches are on the land. But we're all built on all the same principles. We're all built on hard work and an honest day's pay, and a handshake is a deal, and that's it. But for some reason, we've adopted this culture, and it goes back to Joey's day. If we can't do this because, and we've gotten a lot better, I will say, of being independent and fighting for our resource and fighting for ourselves. And we are getting there. More Newfoundlanders are making it on the national and international stages now than ever. And people feel more like they're part of Canada now than ever. But Alberta really adopted this privatized way of living while still managing to take care of the folks that can't take care of themselves at the moment. That if you falter, they're still there. If you need healthcare, you can still get healthcare. But I mean, how many liquor stores did you go to in Alberta that were privatized?
Yeah.
Did you go to motor registration that was not owned by motor registration?
Most of them.
And it makes things more efficient and more user friendly and gives you, frankly, more options. I remember the first brand new car I ever bought was in Fort McMurray, Alberta. It was a 2013 Chevy Cruze. It was I've regretted the purchase. I traded it in 8 months later for a pickup truck, but for the sense of the story, I'll tell you that. And I said, well, where's your motor registration at? Oh, don't go down there. You'll wait too long. Go down the road to what was it called? CCA or CAA?
CAA, actually. Yeah, it was CAA. It was CAA.
Yeah, and Canadian
Was it downtown
or something. It was downtown. Yeah, it was right across from the Walmart.
Yes, it was. Okay, now I know.
I walked in there and they're like, "What do you want?" I'd like to register a brand new car, please. Okay, over there. And within about 10 minutes, everything was done.
Yep.
But if you walk into a motor registration wicket, everybody does everything. And it's convoluted and it's messy. I think there's departments like that you could privatize or work hand in hand.
Well,
do you need a motor registration office in Corner Brook and in Stephenville? When government pays people to work in motor registration but ships most of it off to Ottawa or Corner Brook, could we not find a way to streamline that into the private sector?
We could, but the question is like, do we have the political will to do that? Because that is the greatest problem for Newfoundland and Labrador is it's having that
mind shift that needs to happen in a province before we can even think about it. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm very much an evidence-based, facts-based kind of individual, and I'm very much the same as a politician. Any decision I try to make is based on the facts that are in front of me and the evidence I have, and I don't just go on hearsay. And that has gotten me a long way in life. So if we look at the numbers and say we can do this better privately, or an injunction like motor registration in Alberta, can we do it in conjunction with the private sector and make it more efficient? If we can and we can save money, then we should.
Yep. No, absolutely. And but like I said, I mean, like there is this really toxic culture here, and we need to change that. And it's not just, with in terms of like kind of the attitude towards privatization. It's I think it's something I kind of mentioned on that Twitter space that we tried to do a couple of years ago, where we have the other issues, and it's federal and provincial. It's the social assistance program, it's the unemployment system,
Mm-hmm.
the seasonal work culture is quite honestly, it is problematic to an extent. And I'm not knocking the people, because the system is there and the way it's set up. But I mean, like, you got 6 months of work, then you got 6 months of not working.
That's right.
And you're sitting back and you're waiting for the government to just hand you that sweet old check.
Yeah.
And listen, I can't blame them. It's a pretty sweet setup. Who would want a 6-month vacation, dude? I would. But at the same time, I mean, is it healthy for the economy? No, it is definitely not. It's wrong. In terms of like, economic growth and development and for taxation purposes. So I mean, that's why like I'm fundamentally opposed to the system as it stands now. Now I'm not saying get rid of unemployment, get rid of having a seasonal industries and things like that. Not at all. It's just that I believe that we need to change it in a way that gets people from one job to another during their off time as quickly as possible. And that'll actually help not only with the kind of the culture here and with the attitude towards privatization. It'll just benefit the province in general, because once we make people more self-sufficient, they're going to probably start wanting the same of their government.
Right.
So that's.
And the one thing I never understood in Newfoundland, and we've talked about this before off air, is Newfoundland is very much a place that is very involved with its government, but very much wants to be left alone, pay little to no tax, and have the services there when they need it. Much like anywhere else. But we can't seem to get a government that has the same momentum. And I've never understood it. And anytime you talk to someone like the elders of Newfoundland and why this happened, and most of them, 90%, 95% tell you the same thing. It was a culture that Joey Smallwood instilled in this province, that the government is your savior.
Yep.
And the government will protect you, and it will do everything that you need it to do, and without us, you're nothing.
Yep.
I think slowly over time, you're starting to see that change, but I'm very surprised that we haven't seen it happen quicker, because you talk to anybody. I mean, we both ran in a municipal election.
Yep.
And the number one thing we heard is Trudeau charges too much taxes. The province charges too much taxes. And my God, if you get in, do something about it. And even locally, they complain they pay too much taxes, although we have one of the lowest mill rates in the province. Well, people at the end of the day are just frustrated that at all three levels, it's give me, give me, give me, give me. But yet, we vote for the opposite of what we want. And I've never been able to understand it.
It's because voting for the opposite is the easier thing to do.
Mhm.
I mean, it's people don't want to feel that pain. They don't want to have that feeling that, it's their problem, it's their responsibility, and that's the biggest issue here. A lot of people, um, they kind of shirk that kind of responsibility that they have, as much as I hate to say that, you
Right.
know. Like, just look at the reaction of people when Siobhan Cody said, every Newfoundlander born now has debt as his birthright. Everyone got so offended by that. How dare you say that? And how dare you kind of put that around our necks? Well, guess what, boys? You voted for it.
Mhm.
I voted for it. You voted for it. Our parents voted for it. Our grandparents voted for it. There is not one party right now, and listen, and you know what? This is a broad criticism of everyone. Not one party right now that wants to make that hard decision. And who pays for it? All of us.
At any level, there's nobody talking about the hard decisions
Because it's not
nobody wants to
popular.
feel the pain right now. And I can
And nobody
remember.
wants to lose their seat.
Do you remember Jim Prentice? God love him. He's dead now, but
Yes. Oh, I remember Jim. I definitely do.
the election that went to absolute chaos. This is the year Notley won, and him and Gene split the vote.
Don't remind me, man. I remember.
And he
I don't know
came
if
out
talking
in a press conference and was taking crap about the deficit. So this would probably have been 2013, 2014. And Notley was still in power in 2016 during the wildfire, so it was probably 2014, I would think, or 2015. Him and Brian Jean's party, the Wild Rose Party, split the vote, and Notley came up in the middle. But during that election, do you remember the press conference when the news report
Yep.
came out that Alberta was in a lot more debt than him and the PCs told everyone they were, and we were essentially broke? And I don't know if you were living there at the time. I think you were.
I was actually. I remember that because I remember it snowed that night when the PCs lost.
Yes. And he came out and he's like, listen, if you want to know why we're broke and we have no money, go look in the mirror.
Yep.
And oh my sweet heavens above. The
Yeah,
uproar
they killed him.
Is
They killed him.
equally amountable to what Siobhan Cody said.
Yep. And that's the big problem here. Like, nobody really wants to make that decision, like I said, and they never will. And if you try to tell them about it, they'll never forgive you.
No.
It's almost like they feel offended by the very notion that they have some sort of responsibility for the situation that we're in. And nobody wants to, and nobody will take the responsibility. It has to. I tell you, truthfully, it has to be forced on them.
Yes.
You got to be told, like, listen here, no matter who you vote for, you're responsible for this now. So if you want to have a better government, you better start paying attention to what we're saying. Because, like, listen, we've been on campaigns. We've ran campaigns. We've been candidates. And no one reads the literature. Let's be honest.
No.
Like, I remember handing out so many flyers with my ideas on it. And I tried to talk to people about the issues. And honestly, I'd say probably out of every 10 doors, I'd probably get one person who bothered to listen. The rest of them would be like, oh, thank you. Yeah, good luck. And then they would just try to slam the door. So, it's this kind of culture here. It's the absolute apathy of it. And it's sad and it's depressing because, like, in other places that I've been to, during elections, you'd be surprised, man. Like, people ask questions. Like, I've been to developing countries where they won't even look at you unless you hand them a flyer and talk about what you want to get done. They want, like, evidence. It's crazy here. Like, here it's just like, what color are you? Oh, your ex color. All right, boy, my grandfather voted for you in like 1939, so good enough, boy.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. That's it. That's how our elections are.
I kind of
They're
think
they're just yeah.
we've come so comfortable with what democracy looks like in the adage that politicians have preached for us to years that do what you want and we'll leave you alone, that the understanding of every decision they make actually affects your bottom line at the end of the day. And it
Yep.
people like the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, just that they're off the top of my head, that do a good job of saying, listen, every dollar spends is a couple of cents in your pocket too.
Yeah, I'll say this. I mean, it's kind of related to the topic. Kind of like let's look at Pierre Poliver and when he talks about just inflation. You know, people. It shows how poorly understood, or how poor an understanding, I should say, people have about inflation and that. Whenever like you'll see it on, say, for example, Twitter. There's one fellow particular in Newfoundland, and we probably I know who he is. Every time Pierre Poliver comes out and talks about just inflation, this guy comes out and just mocks him for it. And it's like, you don't understand. You're just fear mongering. You're just making excuses. And then I've seen him a couple times. He has like a Joseph Goebbels kind of like gif. He's using them like I'm like, the guy is telling us that things are expensive, and like you don't need Pierre Poliver to tell you that prices are going up, especially in Newfoundland.
Right.
Like you can't go down and buy $100 worth of food for yourself, just for yourself these days, like and have it last more than like a couple of days. Like the price of food is nuts. Fuel is going up, and then what's going to go up with the fuel? The price of goods and services. You know, but people don't realize that. Like,
and it's the taxes associated with things that we're not seeing. So what?
Yep.
This new federal not gas tax, carbon tax that's supposed to come out in April, I believe, is going to add another 16 cents onto the dollar.
Yep, it will. It will.
I work a half hour outside of town. I drive a hybrid. And I will
So don't hold it against you.
At the end of this year. I've already traded in a pickup truck that made me revenue in the summer.
I know. I remember.
So I've had to give up a truck that made me money because I couldn't afford to drive it all winter long.
Yep.
For a car that I've tried to force into a truck, and I've brought it to its limits, and I will still in June, if this carbon tax does come into place, have to look at a site transfer, which is a decision nobody should have to make, especially not in rural Newfoundland. I mean, we're kind of urban in Stephenville, but we are rural.
No, we're not really urban, man. Like we're this is a rural town. I will debate fiercely anyone who says that we're not, because I mean, listen, this is the kind of town where like you look out the window and there's a quad going down Queen Street.
That's fair. Yeah.
So let's
the last 5 years turn ourselves back into a country living environment. So you are right. I'll retract what I just said, but
no. I say it with all due respect, of course, you know, like, but like, and that kind of like ties into something I used to say, to be honest with you, is that there was always this idea that say Stephenville was a very metropolitan kind of place. You know, it was kind of the sophisticated cosmopolitan jewel in the midst of, you know, the kind of rural hillbilly kind of thing. And that's honestly like what a lot of people like in Stephenville, like they think of it themselves. You know, they kind of think to themselves like, oh, well, I'm better than someone from out mainland, or I have a good job out here. I'm not like the boys out in Lords. You know, it's funny thing is though, the boys out in Lords aren't paying as much tax as you are, my son. So, you know, look at it as you will. I mean, I think sometimes that some of those guys living out in the rural communities, they're the smart ones.
Listen, some of the best times of my life happened in Point Mall.
Hey, boy, same.
30
I'm not
minutes the other way.
I'm not complaining with Point Mall, man. You know, like that's where my people's from. That's where my mom's family's from.
That you get. I mean, I love our town. I love everything it represents. I love what we're trying to do.
Same here.
We're very much, I called this urban earlier, but you corrected me on that. I guess the right thing for me to say is we're very much a country town with an urban.
We're kind of a hybrid, really.
Yes, it like we have all the amenities you could want in an urban setting.
Yep.
With a very much country living mentality.
Yes, and you know what? I like that. But I will say this, like the one thing about Point of Mall, like kind of like before we get back to the point here, the one thing I gotta say about like Point of Mall, Fox Island River, that area, it's gorgeous in summer, but God help you in the winter, man. Especially Fox Island River. I mean, well, when you can actually go on the road, when it hasn't been reclaimed by the sea.
Those communities. I mean, oh sorry, I dropped my pen, but the thing about growing up in Point of Mall, and I mean, your grandfather was from Fox Island River, was he not?
My mother was too, so yeah.
The mother was too. So what gets instilled from you at a very young age? And I mean, my stepfather's from Point of Mall. I spent much time there. I still love going down to the house. Is for one, the freedom of owning so much land.
Yep.
The privacy that comes with it, but knowing that your neighbor is not that far away if you need a hand. But
absolutely
learning how to do just enough of everything to survive. So there's literally been days, and when I was younger, I remember the highway plow would take itself off the road. So they would go as far as like Hines Road, Pine Tree, stop, turn around because it was too hard to get down and do all the twists and turns.
Yeah, of course.
So
yeah.
People would get in their pickups personally and plow the road themselves so they could get to town for if they had an emergency. And they would call their buddy and they'd say, "Can you follow behind me?" So you'd have one of them going in the center and one of them on the edge, plowing the road. They've literally learned to survive without government assistance.
Yep. No, it's true. Like it's a very kind of close knit and independent communities. And it shows because I mean they've like if you talk about regionalization to some of them, man, you better watch out.
Oh, you will,
because they're not going to go for that.
The stakes will come out. You need to offer them something big.
No, sorry there. I kind of got cut off there for a second. I think the internet kind of flubbed.
Oh, I said down there, you go after them like regionalization, like you just said. They'll come after you something fierce. You need to offer them some incentives.
Yeah, you definitely do because all they'll think about is, well, I'm going to pay my taxes, and it's all going to go to Stephenville.
Yes.
So why would I want to go and do that?
The funny thing is, you can't blame them for thinking it because that's exactly how everyone in Stephenville feels about St. John's. That's how exactly everyone everywhere outside the overpass feels about St. John's.
No, yeah, it's absolutely true. And even like people in Stephenville, I mean, you say like, well, organization, oh, well, all the money is going to be spread out amongst like everyone else. So everyone else is going to get all the things and we're going to get ignored. There's this kind of idea that like Stephenville is the shining golden like utopia on the hill, and that all the money that we've earned here is going to go like out to like I don't know like Winterholme or something, or to Campbell's Creek,
right?
Like they get really really bothered about that. So it's a really complicated issue, to be honest.
And I've always been under the proponent of if we were one, we would be stronger and we would have more clout. I haven't heard any opposition to it, but I'm sure it's out there, and I would love one day to do a town hall in Point of Mall. I don't know if a Stephenville town councillor can go to Point of Mall and do a town hall just to see how they think. But because I am one of the locals, regardless if I live here or not, right?
Well, that's true. You're everyone's counselor, Lenny. Yeah, that's what you got to have as your slogan, man. It's just like Lenny Tiller, everyone's counselor.
But I do believe firmly that there are sections, especially Kippens, that could join on.
Oh no, like
It wouldn't be Stephenville, Kippens, Port au Port, Point of Mall, Fox Island River, Campbell's Creek, Mainland.
I
Keep their name.
I I I couldn't see it like that per se. Like the way I'd picture it. My God, we've gotten off topic, but
That's our
no, that's what I
podcast.
love it. Yes it is. Yes it is. We're still learning, folks. 12, 19 episodes in, we're still learning. Like I could see like for example, Steamville Kippens, Knowles Pond, Cold Brook, um, under one. I could see that 100%. And then past Remains Bridge, you'd have Port au Port, East and West, Fox Island River, Point of Mall, everything in kind of in between there. All under one. And then further out, you'd have like say Mainland would be, and the surrounding areas, there would be one regionalized town as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like base it on like the larger population centers within a certain kind of radius. Like I don't like the idea of having, say, for example, Stephenville all the way out to I don't know, near Bus Wallace. Like I can't agree with that. That's too big. It's too hefty. Like Kippens, like this might be a bit controversial, but I don't really care who hears it. I don't see why Kippens is not a part of Stephenville as it is, because it's literally the only thing that divides Stephenville and Kippens is a tiny little bridge. That's literally it. That's
That
it.
bridge may be what, 200 meters wide, if that.
Not even. I mean, listen, I could literally I could jump across that brook.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not that big a brook. Like it's the idea that like we're literally a store like Stephenville Crossing, I can see as a different township because it is some distance.
Mm-hmm.
Kippens is literally a suburb of Stephenville. I don't care what anyone says. Like that's going to be the most hateful. I'm going to get hissed at for that. But Kippens is literally a suburb of Stephenville. It's Stephenville with septic. That's literally all it is. That's the only thing dividing. Hey, look, it's true, man. And listen, we both know the controversy that has come with septic systems in Stephenville.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Kippens is. Kippens is literally just Stephenville with septic.
Yeah.
So and a farm in the middle of it, next to a mansion, which I've always found delightful. That's very wholesome for me.
It's always made me wonder though. Like I've always had this dream of, I would always call it the city of Bay St. George. After living in Fort Mac and hearing the history of that place and everything that that city has gone through before it was even a city, when it was just a bunch of farming communities.
Yep.
I mean, downtown was literally its own thing. Waterways.
Oh yeah.
Greg was its own thing. And it's unbelievable to think of how close they are together and how interconnected they are now that they were all independent of each other. And then when you look at that, and then you look at Bay St. George as a whole, you could literally do the same thing here and encompass everybody, but it would be much harder because of the mind shift change. But I always wondered if it would be cheaper on each municipality to come under one, and if it would be cheaper on the province to come under one, and if people would not get better resources if they were under one. And the argument you always hear is I'll pay taxes and get nothing, and that's why I live so far away.
Yep.
If there was ever
no,
a
and that
debunk that, I think you could change your mind. The problem is there's no way to debunk it right now.
no, but I mean, like the other thing too here though, is kind of we don't have the kind of density that Fort McMurray or the regional municipality with Buffalo would have.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, like there's a lot of things kind of split up there. And like Sapere Creek
of itself, like
Sapere Creek could probably be considered like I don't know, like Fox Island River maybe, or would that be more? Or that's more like fancy Fox Island River, I should say. It's because Sapere Creek was always like that.
Point them all.
There's some pretty nice houses out in Point them all these days. By like, let's not. I you know what? I'm probably gonna. I retract what I say too, actually, about Fox Island River too, because I mean, there's a lot of nice houses down there now. Like the development is starting.
That's right. I
Mostly
mean,
mostly
listen,
by
Fort McMurray, or sorry, Fox Island River is something we don't have in Stephenville right now. And that is a chart-topping country music
yeah.
artist.
Yeah, we got to listen. Listen. You know what? I'll take over. I'll take over Fox Island River just so we can claim that we have him.
Yeah.
Just so we can say he's ours. You know, that's just it.
And I was very surprised because you've seen a lot of people from the Bay St. George area who have made it big and always said they were from Stephenville.
Yeah, but he always says he's from out that way.
Always, to the day he dies, will say, "Listen, I'm from Fox Island River, and you have no idea where that's to, and that's awesome."
But you know what, man? Listen, I'm gonna say this, and it's kind of like the off topic, but that's why some of our listeners love us.
Mm-hmm.
Fox Island River has and Point de Mall too has amazing musical talent. I don't know what it is because like even me, like I got two uncles that play like instruments. My mother plays the accordion. My one uncle plays the accordion. Another uncle plays the accordion amazingly well. My other uncle plays like the mandolin, the violin, well, not the violin, but the mandolin, the accordion, the guitar, you know, all kinds of different things. Me personally, you know, you've heard me, I sing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just something. I don't know if it's the water out there or God knows what it is, but it's just music just flows out of there. But then again, I think it's also because it's mostly French out there too. That's the thing. Like maybe it's the French kind of descent.
There's something to that. I mean, you take Emile Benoit, who was from the peninsula, not necessarily from Point de Mall, Fox Island River, was from the peninsula. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, no, but like mainly
my stepfather's family, the Smiths, his brother Edward.
Oh yeah,
his heyday. We used to have like Christmas parties at the house, or just like family get-togethers at the house. If you weren't standing in the living room, you would swear, and this is no word of a lie, you would swear that Randy Travis was on the radio or was on cassette. And I'm dating myself now, but you would swear he was there until you walked into the living room. And like my stepfather can sing. He doesn't sing much because he's so shy, but like his brothers can all sing and play. And there's something about it. You're absolutely right. There's something out there that makes these people so talented.
And I legitimately got to say that, you know, and I say this as someone, you know, who's got some French roots in me. You know, it's just that kind of culture too. It's that kind of French Acadian Mi'kmaq kind of culture out there that has that it kind of encourages that kind of musical talent and glorifies. Because I mean, like you got to look at it like this. Back in the day, boys didn't have much to do out there.
That's
you know, it's not like you could turn on the radio because you know, back in my grandfather's day, you were lucky to have a radio. You're lucky to have electricity. I mean, I don't think my mom saw electricity out in Fox Island River until like the 60s, man.
I mean, like, they're literally the definition of work hard, play hard.
Oh my God, yes. And I mean, like, listen, I got to kind of plug my own grandfather there, man. Like, my grandfather is pretty much like the biggest reason that Fox Island River got a lot of his development, like the fish plant when he used to be out there. That was my grandfather. Same with the breakwater. My grandfather was the one who pestered the government so damn much that they just gave up and gave it to him.
Have you been to Fox Island River lately?
I have not, to be honest, and I should, because literally, you know, that's like my blood is in the soil there. Like no word of a lie.
The fish plant on the wharf has actually been being renovated.
Really? That's awesome.
It's incredible to see, because growing up, I mean, we went down there on quad all the time, or trike, or
yeah.
What I should say is we went down there a lot on the Big Red, is what I should say. And we didn't really have a quad until we were later in life, but we either were down there on the Big Red or the Yami, and the building was always depleted, and there was always stuff going on in there. But as of late, I don't know what happened through government grants or people just saving money or whatever it was. It's actually being redone. There's a new bay door. There's a new front. They're starting to.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Starting to shell it better, and it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome to see, because the resource down there on the water is so rich.
It is. Well, I mean, that's why they settled out there. But you know what my best memory of Fox Island River is? I tell you the truth, on the wharf is the Miss Samantha.
Yeah.
the green machine.
Yeah.
That green hull, man. My cousin owned her. And I'll never forget that, man. I always used to go down there, and that's whenever I think about Fox and River, all I can think about is Miss Samantha sitting at the wharf, and and the other one there, my other cousin, his brother owned the other one, was red. One had a green boat, the other one had a red one. I should remember its name now because he passed away, unfortunately, a while back. And but yeah, like I remember those. I think it was the seven daughters, I think, or the three. It was something about daughters, I think.
Yeah.
Trying to remember now. Yes, there was some number of daughters, but I mean, like it was, man, it was good. And even the town is still, like, even the community is still wonderful. I mean, there's still a lot of good people out there. You remember Rena?
Yeah.
God, I miss Rena, man. That woman was fantastic. God rest her soul. She was.
I remember during COVID, I don't know if you're on the Facebook page, and I'm sorry to our listeners for getting off topic, but this is what we were actually supposed to have a guest join us tonight. And there was a power outage in the big city of Old St. John's, which we don't get a lot of here in Stephenville. So I kind of gave him the gears for that. He can live in Mount Pearl and lose the power as much as he does, but it's the second time in a week they've lost power for a considerable amount of time. So we're kind of making it up as we go tonight. It's been slow in the political sphere with all this Omicron.
I say it's. Boy, you know what? I know who cut the power out there. It's a certain fella who used to be in a position of power out in Mount Pearl. He's just getting them back. That's what he's doing. He's just
right.
It's like he's the Scoutmaster strikes. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not saying names, but it's the Scoutmaster strikes again.
Just another reason we need Muskrat Falls. That's all it is. That's what he's thinking.
Nope. Yep. That's.
I remember during COVID, there's a website or a group on Facebook, sorry, that's about Fox Island, Point of Mall, about the almost like the yesteryear, you could say. And I mean, I've known my stepfather most of my life since I've been grade 3, but he didn't talk a lot about growing up. He talked a lot about his dad. I got to know his dad, and sometimes when someone comes into your life later. Like for me, it was early, but for his life, it was later. His parents were much older. His mother is still alive. His father is since passed now. But I got the privilege to know his dad, but his dad was really sick when me and my sister came around. So we didn't get a lot of stories out of him, but I remember sitting with him and watching wrestling until the day that he died. And for my stepfather, it was always too much, I think, to talk about the days of his father and what they did and what they went through. And I always knew they owned a farm, and his mother sold butter, and they had chickens and hens and everything, and they produced their own food, and his mother made all their clothing. And it wasn't until, I guess, April or May of 2020 when we were shut down, this website really took off. I guess people were just home sharing old pictures. And I got tagged in this picture of where our house is to in Point of Mall. So you know roughly where that's to. I
know where she's to. Yep, up near that road.
Yes, and the land right across the road. I didn't know that was owned by our family. We've since, I guess we still own it, but it was parceled off to other people in the family.
Wasn't over there also like a convenience store for a while?
There was, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that much, man. I spent time down there.
Later on in the years, it moved up the road, Bonnie's Convenience and Bar. If you
know
that.
Oh, Bonnie's, yes, I do.
But I guess when they were younger, which he never told me, and I'm very surprised because you know my passion for cattle ranching. I've never ranched a day in my life, but I have such a passion for it. These pictures came out, and I mean, there was 20 to 30, 40, or 50 cows, not just on our family land, but also across the road in these pictures. And you could see him out working and his brothers. And I called him, like, you never told me you were a cattle rancher. No, boy, well, you never asked. But that was their life, and it was something I didn't know until COVID happened. That our my step family, I suppose, I considered a man my father, but they were cattle ranchers and farmers and did everything on their own. And it was actually quite amazing to see how self-sufficient they were.
Oh no, like the boys out there are always were kind of very independent. I mean, like even when my grandfather came there from the valley, he fit right in, man. Like he had a store. You know where what's his name's there? Curbs was.
Yeah.
Yeah. That where his little kind of house was there. That was where my grandfather had a store too.
Oh, that's
And that was like town hall for Foxton River because grandfather was the mayor, pretty much.
Yeah.
You asked like the fellow out there whose wife used to be the senator, like he'd tell you right off the bat, like same thing like that. And a few old fellows who I used to pal around with when I was back in the day, like before I left for Alberta, they told me the same thing. Like, he used to tell me all these stories. It was crazy. Even Dynamite Don got a few stories or two about grandfather. So it's
right there.
Oh man, yes he is, and that's the fella we got to try to get on someday.
Yes,
that'd be just to talk about like how he's seen things change as a journalist and that, or as a radio host here in town. But I mean, like we got to do an episode just kind of talking about like the wonders of kind of the Port Peninsula, man.
Yes,
like and the potential that it has, and we got to get some people on from like the Regional Development Board or something like that.
Yeah,
and really have that conversation, because I mean, like there is so much potential out there, not just in kind of like the people, but like in the resources out there, like tourism. There's a fellow that we both know, who would be really good to talk about ATV tourism, because that's actually a really big business. And it's also very good for kind of good for social distancing, if you think about it, because you're riding around on a quad all day.
Sure.
So there's that. There's the recreational food fishery. There's so many different things that we could do. And I mean, I'd love to have like the Regional Development Board. I'd really love sometime for our fine MHA, Mr. Wakeham, to come on and discuss like what he thinks we can do with the region as well, because I mean, it's all about development, it's all about attracting people into the area. It's
very resource rich, and I mean, one of them they've already basically said no to. And I don't know if we should get into that on this podcast, but you know exactly what I'm talking about.
No, yep.
A little place called Shoal Point, but we'll leave that one where it's due for now. And but do you have anything else tonight, Ernest? We've kind of gotten off topic, but it's been a wonderful episode, and I'm sure people will enjoy it. And we started with spending $100,000 on a premier's office is not needed to balance budgets to the importance of rural Newfoundland. So,
and do we remember these people? That kind of thing. It's awesome, and the musical talent. So, and also, the cat wants to have a word about everything, of course, because she always there's not an In Trenches episode nowadays without my cat meowing.
That's right.
But no, it's been a good episode, man. It's we're definitely working on a few things, getting a few more guests, and it's going to come out well, folks. So just bear with us.
Right.
We're in a very interesting transition. We're even getting the different pages up, social media and everything like that. Very, very exciting.
Officially on Facebook. We're not as of 7:30 this morning, I guess it went live.
I think so. I'm not a big Facebook fellow. I mean, if you noticed, I'm a Twitter guy. That was gets me in all the trouble. But
we have done, I won't say an episode because we're never going to do an episode on that platform, but we did do kind of a meet and greet of In the Trenches on Twitter.
Yeah, a couple days ago.
Not Twitter Hangouts, Twitter Speak.
Twitter Space.
There we go.
Not really much chatting, but I mean, you know what? It's a way to get the fans and maybe to get people interested and maybe wrangle up a guest or two. So It was fun. We're trying a few different things, throwing them against the wall, see what sticks. But you know what? It's been a good night, despite the weather, and look forward to the next episode.
That's right. Our next episode will most certainly be a guest appearance episode from one of my good friends and someone Ernest is starting to get to know. He couldn't join us tonight, as I said, because of a power outage in the big city of Old St. John's and Mount Pearl area. But he will be joining us on our next episode. So stay tuned for that. We're going to talk about what it is to be a student lobbyist and what his experience was like. He's also a floor crosser, as you could say. He's left one party and joined the other, and he comes with a wealth of experience at the old age of 24 years old. But it's going to be an interesting conversation just based on his experience, originally from Carbonear, now living in St. John's, and it's going to be quite an interesting episode for sure.
Definitely.
On behalf of In the Trenches podcast, I'll say goodnight. On behalf of myself, Lenny Teller, and Ernest Snooks. And until we meet again, Newfoundland, Labrador, take care. Good night.
Have a good night, guys.